level agreement, had your department and PIRI not issued a deployment letter, would there be an obligation on the department on the city, in fact, to pay for services that are done when Gubis doesn't have a deployment letter?
The answer is yes, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner. Yes. Right? Because the information that which I do not have at my disposal now, right? But I will talk to that information for the information of the Commissioner, is that the department instructed Gubis to deploy security, ad-hoc security services on sites that they have identified.
Let me read for you 8.2 of your service level agreement. It says, should it be necessary, the city may request the service provider to provide it with such additional services, which once agreed upon by the parties, which agreement shall not be binding until reduced to writing.
Yes.
So, your service level agreement tells the service provider that you have to have something in writing, which constitutes an agreement between us and you. PIRI issues a deployment letter, which is signed by PIRI and by the service provider. So there is an agreement, right, between the city and the service provider. So what I'm putting to you is, if PIRI had not issued a deployment letter, there would be no written agreement between the city and, in particular, the department that's responsible for administering these agreements, right? There would be no agreement between the service provider and the city. And if Gubis went on to do the work, the city would be able to say, well, we don't have an agreement with you. It would have a defense to that. But PIRI has denied the city that defense. So you can't blame the department. The department requires the service, yes. But you have a service level agreement that says it has to be reduced to writing. And PIRI does exactly that. And my gripe with you, or my issue with you, is, had you stopped PIRI in December, when you became aware that PIRI is a free agent, he goes about doing things that are way above his pay grade, when you became aware of it, had you stopped him, the 14 million rand that was incurred for January and December would not have happened. It wouldn't, as a fact, it would not have happened.
I agree, Commissioner.
Yes, and that's my basis for saying you are responsible for that financial cost to the city, which is caused by PIRI, and you are responsible by omission. You failed to act. And the question is whether, was it deliberate that you don't act when the facts called for you as head of department to act? Did you deliberately hold off and therefore created an environment where PIRI does what he does? Or you were negligent? And if you were negligent, it's grossly negligent, which in fact borders on intention. That's what I'm saying. That's a basis for my saying you are responsible for causing that irregular expenditure. If you want to comment, you can, but that's what I'm putting.
No,
that's my position about it. All right, thank you.
No comment.
Thank you, Mrs. Kakan.
Thank you, Commissioners. Just on logistics, can I just request 5 minutes or just adjournment? Just there's some logistical issue that I...
You say your only problem at that stage was that the instruction was inclusive of ad hoc assignments or allocations, in respect of which there were no problems. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
So you must have been aware as early as at the time you knew that the instruction was inclusive of these other allocations as to which ones those were. Or it should, at the very least, have been a matter of relative ease for you to identify which ones did not have any problems. Not so?
It's so, Commissioner.
And so why would it have taken you from 12 March 2025 to 24 June 2025 before you could comply with the instruction.
Commissioner, I still maintain that I exchanged communication with Commissioner Ribospis from this date in the run-up to when the cancellation was effected. So
Remember you agreed when Commissioner Khumalo was engaging you that this issue was something that you were engaging in with others as early as December of the previous year. You remember you said so in response to a question by Commissioner Khumalo.
I do, Commissioner.
Now, surely if your view was that there were no problems at all with some of these entities as early as December of the previous year, you should have been beginning to see which ones have no problems at all and which ones do have problems as early as December of the previous year. Maybe even that is kind to you.
Commissioner,
Not so.
it's so, Commissioner.
It is so.
Yes.
So now eventually, in March, 12th of March 2025, you get a direct categorical instructions, terminate these with effect from tomorrow, which was the 13th of March 2025. Why did you not do that in respect of those companies that you saw no problems, or rather, in respect of those companies that certainly had problems, or in respect of which there were issues? Why did you not do it on the 13th of March 2025?
Commissioner, I'm aware that there were discussions around payment of these companies, okay?
No, Mr. Malatji. The issue could not have been around payment. The issue was around the propriety of the allocations. It was not about payments. The issue with regard to the instruction, terminate this, it was not really about payments.
I agree with you.
So why do you bring in the question of payments?
No, I was trying to make the commissioner aware that maybe the reason why I could not comply with the instruction at that point in time, it was as a result of communications that I was monitoring, communications.
What communications?
There were email communications involving my supervisor, Commissioner Spies, and others. But now, I might have made a mistake.
The content of which, or rather, what was the content of those communications? What were the communications about?
The communications were about paying for these services, right? And participants were suggesting.
But could you not have terminated? Could you not have terminated the service and sorted out the question of payment later? Why must the services continue, piling up the need for more payments? That doesn't make sense to me. Why not terminate immediately and sort out payment where payment was indeed due? Sort that out later.
I think, Commissioner, like I said, that could have been, actually has been an oversight on my part.
A serious oversight, a serious oversight. Do you agree?
I agree.
Commissioner.
To that it's actually it's more serious than an oversight, because we know that in January and February, when Piri issues these deployment letters, which you have already admitted he didn't have that kind of authority and he didn't get that authority delegation from you. You never delegated him to do that. We know that in January and February, he caused an expense of 14 million rand. Just goobies. I think it's just goobies, the 14 million or 12 goobies. It's 2 million rand, which is not, in the circumstances, is not a big difference. But he cost that much when in December already, you were in a position to give him instruction not to issue any deployment letters further. You were in a position in December to give a directive to the departments that all requests must come through you or you must be copied. You were in a position to do that. And you did not. You failed to do that. And I want to put this to you, that in fact, you were the effective cause of that 14 million rand expense of January and February because you chose not to stop Piri, not to instruct him to stop any further letters of deployment for ad hoc services. You chose not to tell departments to direct their requests to you. You chose not to tell the service providers that all instructions must come through you, or they must confirm with you that it is approved. All of that as head of department was within your power and just you alone. You had that power to do all of that. You failed. As a result, the municipality, because of Piri, incurred a 14 million rand expense. And I don't think you should calmly sit there and say it's an oversight. I think you should take full responsibility for that expense because it was well within your powers to avoid it, and you dismally failed either because you chose to look the other way and not stop it when you knew you had the power to stop it, or you were grossly negligent not to stop it. It's not oversight. I don't know if you want to comment, but the sum of what I'm saying is you are responsible for that irregular expenditure of 14 million rand.
Commissioner, I think given the way things have transpired at the end, yes, but I want the Commissioner not to lose sight of the fact that there is a department that which irregularly from the beginning, right, ignored the instruction, right, the instruction that the city has issued to all group heads in the city of Tshwane, to the effect that every ad hoc security services request should be directed to Asset Protection Services, TMPD. Therefore, I don't think it would be fair for the Commissioner to put all of these things squarely on my shoulders, yet I am not the cause of the problem. I happened to be in the bandwagon because I had a responsibility, something that I accept. But in terms of the cause of the problem, the department said they would avail funds to pay for these services. And the department went further to instruct Kubis to deploy security officers on sites that they identified themselves, right? Which is not wrong because it is their site. But now, at that point in time, right, I was not involved. I was not aware.
You see, if your department did not issue a deployment letter, if Mr. Piri did not issue a deployment letter, maybe let me ask you the question, a question. if Mr. Piri had not issued a deployment letter, would Gobis have been at the site?